Welcome to Els of Life show, where the only Els we catch are light, love, and laughter. We believe in the power of a positive perspective, peace, and purpose. I am Tola Ayodeji, call me T, and thank you for joining me today. Today, we will explore resilience, faith, and creativity. We're talking about finding the silver lining with Eniola Kolawole, founder of EniThing I Want, a faith-based creative production company. She's a multifaceted entrepreneur, brand designer, and artist based in New Jersey. It helps brands to grow. She tells meaningful stories through videos and designs digital spaces that inspire. And I can personally say that Eniola helped me last year with season 1 of this podcast. So it is so befitting, or even full circle, I could say, that she is my first guest on season 2. So today, Eniola and I, we're going deep. We're going to find out um, how it is that we can link finding the silver lining in the toughest times to our faith and staying creative. So, welcome to season 2, babe. I'm so happy to have you.
I'm so grateful to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. Let's dive deep.
Yay! Let's get into it. Okay. So, in your line of work, you help brands and individuals to craft messages of hope and purpose. Share with me and those that are listening, how has your own journey shaped the way that you approach storytelling and design?
This is such a great question. I love how you worded that. So, the journey for me to get to where I am today has not been an easy one. It has been a long one and it is still in process. I feel that it's very important for us to dive deep into what it means to be alive and how that
Mm.
relates to what we've been put on this earth to do. A lot of the things
Yeah,
that I do is based on my own spiritual journey and where I feel that God has led me through my life to get to the point that I'm at right now. That's why EniThing I Want is not just a production company, it's a faith-based production company because I believe that a life worth living is a life that is founded on God's truth. So when it comes to storytelling and being vulnerable in that, I really believe it's important for others to be willing to share the struggle that they've gone through, because that's where the
yeah,
true hero's journey comes through, right? We don't want to just hear, oh, I woke up today and everything was perfect, because that's just not realistic. We need to be honest with ourselves. And for me, that honest truth is that I had to go through a lot of moments where I
yeah,
face the reality that I'm not perfect. I don't know what I'm doing in my life. And also, I needed to humble myself in front of God and say, hey, I need your help in this. I need to understand what it means to live a fulfilled life, because one thing we hear so often is like, oh, that person has the car, they have the house, they have all of the things that the world says are the source of
yeah,
happiness. And yet, for some reason, we hear that they're dealing with this or that thing, or they're not fulfilled in life, or they're not happy in life. And
yeah,
I had a period in my life where I was traveling and going places with friends, and I realized I feel like something is missing still. I don't understand why I thought that if I was doing all these things, I would be fulfilled. But God really met me in that and helped me realize that if you're living your life outside of the path that I have laid out for you, which God's path for us will always be better than anything that we can ever envision for ourselves, but it requires a willingness to be humble and to realize that you don't know it all, and that's okay. But God does know everything, and He's going to humble you in the process of you coming to the full realization of who you're meant to be. And so it's just something that I really call my clients and individuals that I've actually been setting up, doing online courses that dive deep into this topic that I call peace in the storm. And it's going to be a course where we basically just talk about all of the different ways that life is unpredictable, but when you apply biblical principles to your day-to-day existence, it can be a mode of breakthrough, and that God can really start to use you in powerful ways, and you'll start to feel a sense of fulfillment where even if the external things don't exist in your life, that there'll be a peace that is unshakable in the knowing that I'm on the right path for myself, even if it doesn't seem that way to the outside world. I can feel a peace that surpasses understanding. And I really like to help my clients recognize that and recognize that, yes, these visions you have are important, but if you focus too much on your works, you're never going to know true fulfillment. You need to first focus on the foundation on which your life is built, and then brick by brick, we make the right decisions. We figure out what brand sounds like, what brand identity works with you, what your vision is, and how we can bring that to pass, and how you can really become the kind of person that not only has a dream, but is able to build that dream and have it sustain itself for a long period of time instead of trying to force your way through something and then realize that it's not working and then it falls
Yeah.
through your fingers like sand. Foundation is what makes the difference between a house that falls down and a house that keeps on standing even when a storm hits.
That's such a beautiful perspective. It's so true. If you don't humble yourself, if you don't ground yourself, that's just how much harder life will humble you or ground you. So it's so much better to have humility than to be forced into being humble. It just reminds us that creativity, like the things that you do, isn't just about aesthetics. It's not about perfection. It's not about, just making everything look all glamorous and awesome and this and that. It's about shaping narratives of hope, because that's what we all need at the end of the day, because we are all going through something. Everyone is going through something. So what we all have in common is need for hope. And when there is life, there is hope. So you better hold on to that hope and be humble. So I take
Mm,
that away from what you've said. Thank
mm,
you.
of course, yes.
So, yeah. I love how you tell your stories, and I love your approach, everything about your brand. Um, I love what you do with them. So, what role, in your opinion, does storytelling play in helping people find hope in difficult situations? Is there an example that you have of maybe a project that truly embodies all of this, helping people find hope in difficult situation?
Yeah, so 1,000%. Without a story, a good story, there is a lack of relatability, right? Like, I'm going to use the Bible as my first example. Imagine if the Bible was just a book full of like lists of to-dos. Do
Mm,
this, do that, and then do this and do that. If we didn't have the story of Daniel or Jacob or Joseph or
yeah.
Abraham, and if we didn't hear their struggles, the intricacies of where they fell short, where they rose back up again, how God met them, there would be a lack of relatability in a lot of those stories. In fact, they wouldn't be stories at all. It would just be like having a list of ingredients, but no guidelines as to how to mix them together and make a
Right.
delicious meal, right? People who just try to wing things in the kitchen, it doesn't really work out. And so, in a
Mhm.
way, storytelling is a foundational part of really meeting people where they're at and making yourself humble in a way that's relatable to others. And
Yeah.
so, I would bring back the course that I'm currently working on because it's at the forefront of my mind. But even I've done like a lot of short films, and a lot of the short films that I've created are based on poems that I wrote that helped me make sense of my life. There's one called Be Still, and it was about when I started to understand, like it just kept ringing in my ear that God was like, be still, be still, be still. And I was like, what does it mean to be still? Another
Mm,
one called Grow Your Roots, where I use the metaphor of a tree and how when leaves fall, it's like when friendships like fall out of your life, but in some friendships are actually fertilizing your roots to grow, right? Because when things die, it's not useless. Sometimes when things
mhm.
die, it goes back into the ground, and the earth uses and repurposes it for
Right.
something even more powerful, right? And so that's a form of storytelling. When it comes to the online course, Peace in the Storm, I use a metaphor of how nature is going to hit you, and the thunder is going to strike and rain is going to fall. But without all of these things, you won't have flowers to bloom. You won't be able to see the resilience of the things that come through as a result of those struggles. And I also use my own personal life experiences in that course where I honestly open up my heart and I'm like, this are the things that I've struggled with. These are moments where I lacked peace in the storm. And these are the ways that God met me and helped me to cultivate that deeper level of knowing and trusting in Him in the uncertainties of life. And if I am not willing to share those stories with the world while I'm telling these lessons or trying to give them deeper insights, it's going to feel like I'm preaching without any substance, the words that I'm saying. There needs to be a sense of vulnerability, and that can only come through by storytelling, right?
Yeah, I like that. Social media is bringing a lot of things to light, even though right now it seems like there's a lot going on in the world and there's a lot of misery, just so many things going on. Um, a lot of things that we don't get to see before, with content and people posting different things. Now we're seeing much more things. We're going into people's homes and seeing their lives and seeing how, things are working with different families, with different cultures, with different countries. And it's so true what you're saying that it all comes together when you're able to see how you're able to relate to others. When you're telling a story and it's relatable, and people can see that, oh, wow, so this person also went through this. Oh, wow, so this thing also happened in that part of the world. And you never know who you're helping with something. You never know who you're inspiring with a story. Maybe you weren't even ready to tell it. Maybe you weren't even comfortable with going through it, but now you see how you could help somebody else with it. And I feel like it all just goes together, and it just shows that storytelling is not really just about marketing. It's a ministry, or at least it seems like that for you. It's a ministry, it's about healing, it's about connecting people to something greater than themselves. And that's what I hear when you're speaking on how you use storytelling, how for you, you feel like you have to pretty much, open up yourself and use your life, your struggles to help other people. I get what you're saying, and I feel it's inspiring how you've chosen to tell your stories, how you've chosen to live your life. We all can be the same, but I love your choices and I love how you're true to what you believe and you live the way you believe. So that to me, that's inspiring and I love it. How do faith, in your opinion, faith and wellness, how do they play a role in finding the silver linings, especially in the digital space where comparison and negativity are so common?
Mm. This is a real one that I think many people deal with in this day and age. We have this desire to make it, especially on our own terms, not wanting to get stuck in the rat race of the 9 to 5. But you also kind of realize that social media, it works for whoever it's meant to work for, and you always wonder, like, when will it be my turn sometimes? For some people, it's
Mm.
like it seems effortless. They post one video and that's it. Their career is done, right? For others of us, we are posting for months, weeks, years, and you just got to keep going. That's definitely is my story. I've been posting on social media for a very long time, and I think I reached a point where I had to kind of separate success from numbers, right? Because someone made a great point. They were like, some people have millions of followers and they are very broke because followers does not necessarily equate success, because in the end of the day, it's more about the lives that you're touching and who's actually being
Yeah,
transformed by the
yeah.
messages that you're putting out there. So if you keep on looking for the numbers and you fail to recognize that individual person that's commenting on your post and saying, hey, what you just said really touched me, and taking the time to reply to them, to talk to them, then you're completely missing the point and the power of
Mm,
social media.
mm,
Right? Social media is more about the lives that you're being touched. And I truly believe whether or not you choose to be an open book or not, once you choose to be online, in a way, you are inviting others into your life. You're
mhm,
inviting others to take snippets of whatever they perceive about you and either criticize that or or glean inspiration from that. And so
Yeah.
it's more of your ability to be grounded in who you were called to be in this life, right? So I think that for me, instead of looking towards followers and likes and engagement, in fact, I even abandoned one of my Instagram accounts that had a lot of followers in order to start a new one from the ground up. And I'm just kind of posting and seeing how it goes, just because I realized that I want to learn to not be so bogged down by what it seems like the analytics are saying. If I really feel like this is where God has called me to be in my life, then all I can do is keep creating. Like there's something that I feel like all creatives have, which I think content creators are also creative. So you guys have this too. We all have this too. It's the sense that if I don't make, I would die.
Hmm.
I was not producing or creating something, I would feel like life is just, I feel like I'm missing out on something. Like something is missing. Like I'm not doing something that I should be doing. So I think that once you reach that point as a content creator where you realize that even if I don't get the likes, I feel like I have to post. Even if it's
Yeah.
just my friends and family, I have to create this thing. And God willing, at the right time, may the right seed bloom into what it's meant to be, right? There's that saying
Amen.
in the
Yeah.
Bible that says, when a like someone who is very sound in business invests in many things, because you don't know which investment is going to result in something. And so, in a way, social media is an investment, and every post that you make is an investment. I saw a video the other day where this girl said,
Hmm.
what if somebody told you that every time you post on social media, I'm going to give you a lottery ticket? You don't know if you're going to win, but I'm going to give you a lottery ticket every single time.
Yeah.
And she was like, wouldn't you post? She's like, I need you to start thinking about posting on social media the same way. That every time you post, whether or not it blows up that time or the next, every single time, every single piece of content that you put online is a lottery ticket that could
Yeah.
potentially lead you to a new life, a new opportunity, so on and so forth. And so sometimes we think, oh, I have to get a bunch of likes in order to get that thing, or in order for social media to do its job. But
Yeah.
sometimes you need a lot of likes. You just need to put something out there because you feel like you need to create. And just trust, I believe, at least I do, I trust that whenever the time is right, the right person will see the right thing, and it will either change their lives in a private way, in which case I've done what God has asked me to do by sharing whatever message I've put on the internet, or it might change my life in a more noticeable way where something happens, an opportunity presents itself, a person I never met would have met in real life otherwise, like I meet through social media, and then this or that thing. At the end of the day, the thing that keeps me going is if I didn't create, I would feel like I was living an idle life. And there's nothing worse to me than living an idle life. In due season, if we don't grow weary, the God that I serve and that I believe is the true God says that you will reap. And in due time, I trust that I will reap from whatever I'm posting.
Amen to that. And
Amen.
it's so true. The whole concept and the whole works that go into social media and branding can either drain us or uplift us. And it just depends on the intention behind it. Um, Everything you said resonate with me. Your work seems to focus on creating spaces that nurture rather than deplete. Similar to what I do here, this podcast is not about spilling someone else's tea, which is why I kind of like keep my life, separate. I'm not trying to say how I live is how you should live, that I know it. I'm not trying to play God. I don't want God's job. I'm not trying to say, oh, this is how you should live because that's just the right way to live. We're all growing together, learning together. So, I make it a point to not make it about spilling someone else's tea. We like our tea in our mug here. We like to just sip and enjoy and let it serve our bodies. What you're saying resonate with me. I agree with what you're saying that we can all work together on, our message and we can continue to, post even when it seems like we're not getting the big numbers. Um, Especially, for me as well, I have to really uh, tap into that energy, not just creating and sharing with the few. I want to share with, I want to broaden my horizon. I want to share with even more people, which is why I'm doing this. So yeah, I have to get into that social media, even though sometimes it could be a lot of work and sometimes it could be very draining. I do have to connect um in a way where that one person, like you said, you never know who that one person is that would connect so deeply that it could take it beyond where you think you're trying to take it, because really it's not about where we're trying to take it, it's about where God wants to take it. And we can only plan so much. We have to leave room for God's master plan. So, and that's why I try to live my life in such a way where I can be strategic sometimes. I can be logical and I can plan. I like structure, but I don't force things. I don't like hold on to it has to be a certain way. Once I know that I have done all the work that I could possibly do, the rest is just to let it, fall where it may and just let God take over of the rest. I agree. Yeah, it's good to get some parts of your life out there and connect with others that might be going through the same or would just somehow use your story and their story to help their life.
And I just also want to add, I feel like that's the thing too about being a content creator online, that there's so many different levels to it. And I don't think it's absolutely mandatory to share every aspect of your life. I share my story to the extent that I feel it's time. Like
Of
I let
course.
myself take the space to reflect on the lessons, live through it fully. And then when I think I've really saturated it into my system, made sense of it, and then like even when I wrote that course, I had no clue that I was writing it and I didn't know what the purpose of it was until now I look back at it and I'm like, oh my goodness, like this can actually help a lot of people. But I took it for granted because it was my life. I was like,
Yeah.
who's going to take anything from this? But then,
Yeah.
it just happened that way. But even with like someone like you don't have to share every aspect of your story. And perhaps what you're meant to do is be a liaison of creating safe spaces for people and showing that vulnerability of what it means to be alive. And then at the right time, whenever you feel ready, you'll share the deeper aspects. And I think that it's more of like a system of life cycles, right? When a
Yeah.
certain life cycle completes, the other one feels kind of like a different version of yourself to the extent
Right.
where it's like someone made a good point. They were like, you're not necessarily talking to people who are where you are. Sometimes you're talking to people who are where you were and want to get
Mhm.
to where you are. And
Yeah.
once you recognize that, there's a vulnerability that you're willing to do because you feel like a sense of tenderness to that version of yourself that felt like there was no one out there
Mm.
that could understand their story,
Yeah.
something like that. So I think that's the beauty of content creating and being a content, like a social media person in general or entrepreneur, is kind of finding that balance of A, where is my joy in this creative process? And B, what type of story am I willing to share and to what extent and at what time?
Yeah.
And letting that change over time as well.
Yeah. It's okay to evolve. It's okay to, grow. And if something is not your light, it's not your light. You got to find your light. You got to recognize your light and
Mhm.
then use it. Yeah. So, if today's conversation spoke to you, please share, subscribe, and reflect. Remember, even when the clouds seem so heavy, light will always find a way. There is always an opportunity to shed light around you, spread love with those that are with you, and share laughter with those that are by you. Ciao, Bella.